And we are live. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Basement Radio Arcade Podcast. We have a very, very, very exciting podcast for you all this evening. We have Matt Piscatella from NPD's, the U.S. Video Game Industry Analyst for the NPD Group. Matt, man, welcome to BRAP. We're really excited to have you on as a guest, man.
Right on. Thanks for having me on. It's going to be fun. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. You know, I've seen you on Super Deformed Gamescast. Actually, John is actually one of our co-hosts. He can't make it tonight. He does say hello, Matt. But, you know, big fan of what you do, and I've been following you on Twitter for a little while, and enjoy, you know, some of the articles that you write that give us a lot of insight and to the gaming industry. And I do enjoy reading some of your forecasts. And, you know, I read one recently where you kind of went back to kind of see, you know, what you wrote in January versus what's actually happened Q3 this year and going into holiday. So very, very interesting stuff, man. It's just fascinating to me because I'm just a gamer, and I always find the inner workings of the industry to be really cool.
I appreciate that. Right on. Looking forward to getting to some of that.
Yep, absolutely. And we have a returning guest. It's been a long time. We have Mr. Inferno from Four Guys with Quarters. What's up, man?
Hey, what's happening? Glad to be back making another appearance, especially when we have a special guest on. You know, double duty. So let's get it going.
Yeah, man. And last but not least, B Money. What's going on, B?
Oh, not much, man. You know, excited about coming off the great weekend we have with gaming and ready to continue the rest of the year, man.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that real quick. How amazing was last Friday?
Probably one of the best Friday.
Yeah,
definitely the best Friday gaming day we've ever had. Now that's a new trend to release games on Fridays, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I mean, we got 3 bangers on Friday. I mean, I haven't looked at Open Critic to see, you know, where these games are trending in terms of review scores and whatnot. I think Mario was like at 97 at one point. I don't know if it held at 97.
Yeah,
I did see some. Is it still? That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I did see one site give it 6 out of 5 stars.
Oh man, probably appropriate. That game is excellent. It's a little fetch questy for me. You know, not questy, but you know, a lot of searching around and finding the moons and stuff. I mean, I appreciate that there's a lot of things to collect in this one, and you know, it keeps you playing. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like I'm progressing through it like a Mario game. It feels like I'm on a world, and I'm, you know, I see that list and I see open slots, and I'm like, damn, I need to get all these moons before moving on. So, you know, I'm taking my time in the worlds, which it could be a good thing and a bad thing. In my opinion, it's a little bit of a bad thing, but I am enjoying it.
Yeah, that's like one of the first things that I noticed too. Yeah,
I would say, like, you know, when I first started playing it, I thought it was pretty cool, but as you get a little further into the game, it almost feels like a chore. You know what I mean? Like I need to collect this amount of moons before I progress any further. So I think they could have retooled that a little bit differently to make it, you know, feel more part of the adventure.
Yeah, and
it's pretty solid.
And it's not even in B Money. It's not even, and correct me if you think I'm wrong here, but it's not even like Mario 64 where you did the quest to get the stars and it had to do with the story or there was a side story to it or whatnot. Some of them are literally just like sneak around this back corner and you found it. It's like you're doing it for essentially no reason, just to find those moons. Like you see a few slots open, there are 25 moons in a world and you're missing 5, and one of them is literally like around you know, the side of a rock, and that's the annoying part for me.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah, I see that. I mean, it definitely does feel like a little bit like a fetch quest at times, which is you know, I don't know. I have my issues with fetch quests at times. Like there's times I just want to pick up a game, and especially like a platform, I just feel like it's something I just want to pick up and just run through it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want instant gratification especially with platformers. I don't want too much thought or work into it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, well, 2017 seems to be the year of the grindy big game.
Yeah. I mean, that's that's true, man. I mean, I was talking to Eric and he's our other co-host. He'll be here shortly, but
He's in.
What's up, guys?
Oh, he is here. Oh, what's up, Eric? Look at that, man.
Perfect time.
Perfect timing. So, yeah. Speaking of like the year of big games, Matt. I mean, I put 126 hours into Persona 5, and I told Eric I had to take a break from gaming. I was mentally worn out by that game. Sounds crazy, but it happened. And I think I was actually just coming off of what game did I was playing something else. Maybe Horizon Zero Dawn. I think I was just coming off that game.
Yeah, right around the corner.
Yeah, those are two games you can put a lot into, man. I can imagine you became fatigued off of that.
No, I did. I mean, it was pretty bad. Like I went back and I started playing Rise, Son of Rome, and I thought that was the best game I've ever played because it was just so easy. So I just want to apologize real quick, guys. I'm a little under the weather, so you might hear me coughing and stuff, or I might sound a little congested. So,
No problem.
But yeah, I mean, Friday was just. I mean, talk about a great year in gaming, and Friday was just another example of how great I think this year has been for us. I mean, I own all three platforms. I think like most of us here on the podcast do, and I had to make some decisions. I couldn't pick up all three games. I couldn't pick up Origins. I couldn't pick up Mario and Wolfenstein 2. I mean, I ended up picking Wolfie 2 and Mario, but I couldn't do all three. Couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, same here.
And so speaking of Mario, kind of jump into one of our topics for the evening. Since Matt and I were actually talking about Nintendo and their resurgence before we went online live, but Mario seems to be selling pretty well, from what I understand. What is it? 2 million units in just 3 days? I mean,
Crazy.
That is insane. I think I read somewhere that the game was sold at a rate of 463 copies a minute, or 8 per second.
That's absurd. Does that include the console bundled ones, by the way, too? There was a console bundle. What was it, like $380 with the special like red Joy-Cons as well? Does that
imagine it would be?
Oh, okay.
Does it includes that, Matt?
I imagine it would. I mean, I'm sure they would count that in the copies sold.
Wow. I mean, when I was at Best Buy, I mean, I saw stacks and stacks of pre-orders, both console and the game. Yep. I mean, I was just mind blown by this. As much as I was, and I think all of us were critical of Nintendo last console gen, and maybe, with the news of, the Switch, when we first got word of Nintendo, putting out a portable device that was going to use cartridges, and I mean, I was skeptical. I didn't think that this was a good idea. Of course, lo and behold, I was wrong. But I think Nintendo's back, guys, and I think they're back in a big way. And Matt, I think you touched upon, I think they've even exceeded your forecast, what you predicted earlier in the year.
Yeah, and the only person that I know of that had a more bullish forecast for Switch back in January was Dan Ahmad from Nico Partners. It was the only guy saying things bigger than I was. Turns out that it might exceed both of our forecasts and predictions. And who knows? Like, so we've had a few years here of the grim, dark action shooter game with either a woman with a bow or a dude with a beard and a gun on the box art. Seems to have been the primary game for the last 3 to 5 years. And here we go, the first like really great Mario game in some time, and it just absolutely blows doors. And you're like, okay, yeah, there's still room in this industry for more than just let's shoot things. And that's actually a really comforting thing to see in a lot of ways, and exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's definitely a nice change of pace, from what we've been playing or what we've gotten accustomed to. And I just think it's great. I've said this a million times on this podcast. I want to see Nintendo. I want to see Microsoft. I want to see Sony. I want to see all three do well because it benefits us as consumers, as gamers in the long run. And it's exciting to see Nintendo. I mean, just firing in all cylinders. I mean, I don't think any of us expected this.
Well, one person did.
I did.
Exactly. I was gonna say.
I tried to tell y'all. Y'all didn't want to listen. Y'all thought I was crazy. Y'all thought I was insane. I tried to tell y'all. Proof is in the pudding.
B Money. Yeah, you know what? And that's all joking aside. B Money, you and I think Kofi were like the only ones, the only believers. You know, in terms of the Switch. I'm a believer now. I'm a believer. I have converted. I'm on the Nintendo bandwagon right now.
I kind of left there. I said never count them out. I was waiting to see because I was a Wii. I had a Wii U, or I have a Wii U. So I was in there. I was just kind of saying, you know, I kind of want to see what they learned from that. And hey, lo and behold, Reggie might be right, man. Wasn't Reggie out there with that bullish prediction?
I don't remember what his prediction
Didn't he say like 16 million by
by the first year?
Yeah.
I think he did. Yeah. Matt, what are you predicting them to sell, I guess, their first full year retail?
However many they can make. So whatever that is. So yeah, like forecasting this thing right now is you're forecasting your supply chain more than you're forecasting consumer demand. Same thing with the SNES Classic and the NES Classic. Like I'm trying to figure out what run rates are and how many lines they might have operating in order to figure out what my forecast is. So it's very much supply constraints environment. And it's going to be that way for some time. And it's frankly amazing. So they up their guidance in the number of Switch they're going to be able to produce. They say they figured out their component issues. They have another line going that should increase their number. What it's looking like right now is that over the first 10 months, which would be the first calendar year for Switch, it should exceed with some cushion that what the Wii sold over its first 10 months. So they're in a really good position right now. And the question is, can they go from the core gamer consumer who they've locked in now and get this to the mass market, get mom and grandma buying it for little Johnny, and really kind of push that market out. And I think with something like Mario, they're in a great position to do that, followed up later by Pokemon RPG. So I think the upside potential for this thing is bigger than maybe any console ever. And I'm including the big ones. A long way to go, of course, to get there, but the foundation has been laid, and now it's a question of execution.
That's pretty wow. I mean, I heard you say any console ever, and I'm just thinking to myself all the years that I've been gaming and the many consoles that I've seen successful that have like shot into the stratosphere. I think of the Wii and the PlayStation 2. I mean, that's just wow. I mean, that's. I guess I guess with Nintendo, and I think about like the SNES. Like I didn't think that the SNES would have like been the top selling console at NPD, and I'm just surprised by them. I really did count them out. I haven't owned a Nintendo console in a very long time. And I was out there launch day for the Switch, and I'm just amazed by it. I keep saying this. I'm just blown away, and to hear you say that, basically they can sell pretty much as many units as they want. So I mean, so long as they maintain inventory. I mean, that's huge. I mean, this and I said this like a couple podcasts ago, and I've said this numerous occasions. I think that I could see this Switch being like, and I know people will disagree with me, but I could see the Switch being like the top selling console this holiday if they can keep inventory up.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I'm right there with you guys, man.
Yeah,
I didn't think initially that it could, but just after looking at the success that it's had in the recent months, I think it definitely could. The games are there, and it's that cross between a home console.
Oh, B, we lost you there, buddy. He might have dropped. All right, we'll get back to B. Matt, what do you think? Though? I mean, do you think they're? I mean, do you think that they, if it wouldn't surprise you then if they were the top selling console this holiday?
Wouldn't surprise me at all.
Oh, B, we lost you for a sec, man.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all either if they can keep that stock flowing. I think it's going to be a really competitive holiday. Actually, Microsoft's actually going to sneak back into the picture here in the holiday as well. I think what's really exciting, though, is you look out a little bit, and so much of the future, to me, hinges on Pokemon and what happens with Pokemon on Switch. What Pokemon allows the Switch to do is eventually get to the point where they're selling multiple consoles per household, much like more like a portable system. If they can do that, and I think Pokemon would be what would drive that, you're actually breaking the benchmark of what other consoles have done historically, which have generally been one per household, except for some crazy people that might have a couple. But generally, it's one per household. If the Switch gets 1.2, 1.3 per household, then you're talking about upside that other systems haven't been able to address. So, I mean, you look bigger picture, like this holiday, yeah, meaningful. Next year, I have the Switch beating every other platform by the millions of units.
What?
And if Pokemon RPG gets out next year, it gets even more interesting. So the timing of this is right. Like the games are there. The price seems to be right. And it's, they could still find a way to stumble and not get there. But so far, so good.
Well, speaking of timing, doesn't the fact that that's more successful on the other two platforms, and according to your forecast, you have them beating them out by millions, doesn't that have to do with the fact that also that, it's already been 4 years with the other consoles? People already have those in their homes. So, yeah, the cyclicality of it it's great timing. And if you assume that the PS5 or the next Xbox, whatever that is, if it's a new console or just a Windows 10 box with a console GUI, best case to me, those are 2020. So, Switch has a nice runway before it really has to start fighting the next gen of consoles. Maybe 19, but I don't see it. So, shoot, man, if they can keep the content flowing, wow, like sky's the limit.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Matt, real quick, someone in the live chat, Sergeant No Rider, has a question for you. He wants to know how many Switch buyers are buying it as their primary console. And he's wondering if Switch can sell beyond the base of folks who already have a console, which I think we just kind of answered. But I guess to his first question about Switch buyers, what was it? Or do you know how many Switch buyers are buying this as their primary console? If we even know that.
So I'm sure Nintendo does. We do research on that with a sample survey panel. But that kind of information tends to lag sales information. So we're looking to get really good, solid data on that here in the coming weeks. But I don't have a good idea of that right now. My sense is that this is a core console device right now. So the core gaming market has generally been the folks that have attached to it so far. I assume that this is a secondary console for most folks that have it now, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a secondary console in my house. I mean, I have, the other two, and this, the Switch was the last one. And I, don't primarily game on the Switch, but yeah, it's definitely, I know for me, it's definitely a secondary console. And I think for everyone else here on the panel as well, if I'm not mistaken, it probably is as well.
Well, not to be like a dissenter in this topic, and I don't want to downplay Sergeant's question, but in terms of, and Matt, I think maybe you can speak to this a little bit more, of course, but in terms of Nintendo's strategy, does it even matter if it's the primary console? Because Nintendo isn't really going for that games as a service idea that now Sony's jumping on, and Microsoft obviously, kind of started the ball rolling with that. So does it even matter if it's primary? I mean, just getting in the home is a win, right?
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo does its own thing. It doesn't really care what the rest of the market's doing. It figures if it can deliver on its first-party titles, not only will the customers come, but third parties will come. And so they don't care. Like, it's amazing to work with them. They just don't care about what everybody else is doing because, like, we do our own thing. So, yeah, I don't think they mind.
Yeah, I've always kind of, suspected that about Nintendo. They don't really care where they place as long as they're there. it's like they have no problem with you kind of like having that, considering it like your secondary console to maybe your PS4 or Xbox or whatever.
Right, because
and a lot of gamers have rolled that way for like, generations now.
right, right, yep, absolutely. And because they're not. Oh, go ahead, B-Money, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I think that's what makes me appreciate them even more. You know what I mean? The fact that they kind of stick to their guns and kind of do what they want to do, and they bring their IPs to the table, and they seem to do well every time. So you got to respect them for that.
Yep. Because you remember everybody was saying, before the Switch launched, it was like, here they come with this underpowered console. Why can't they just make it like Xbox or PS4? And I'm like, that's not what they do. And they don't even want to be in that realm. And why should they be? You want to be something a little bit different, wildly different than what the other two are doing, or you just get lost in that fray. Can you imagine, like, right now, if we had a third, contender in this power battle, it would be a wash. I think that's why they're making noise too, is because they're offering something wildly different. They're just focused on games, fun, and being in, getting into that household, taking it on the go, and neither one of the other two can say that.
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. I think they, out of Microsoft and Sony, I think Nintendo really can offer you a different way to experience your games through the ability of, as simple as it sounds, being able to dock it or take it off the dock and take it with you on the go. It's we can all joke about we did joke around about the NBA 2K18 commercials. Remember with people on the basketball courts outside with the switches.
Yeah. Right.
We would joke around about it, like, oh well, who would actually go out and on a basketball court and play NBA 2K on the Switch, but that is I think for me the key differentiator for them, and that they really do offer something truly unique that the others don't, and it's not really like a gimmick either.
Right.
That's the other thing.
And you know who will, Enrique? The kid that's waiting for his dad to finish playing his pickup games.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. I'm seeing. Okay, I commute on the subway to work now, and I'm seeing people with switches.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Planes. Like people on planes, I've seen that a lot. A lot of switches. A lot more switches than I've ever seen on planes than DSs, for sure.
Or probably even Vitas, right?
Oh, please. That's like a dinosaur. That's like the chupacabra. That's like
the chupacabra. You're like, I swear I saw one. I promise you I saw one. It was like a unicorn.
Oh my gosh. The chupacabra.
No, but they delivered on what the Vita. Remember, I think Sony got in some trouble over those commercials back in the day of being able to pick up the Vita, walk out the house, and continue your game. And Nintendo, exactly delivered that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like Nintendo, all they care about is they want smiles, right? They want to deliver smiles. While Microsoft and Sony are fighting over having the most realistic guns and all that stuff and visceral combat and
right.
Nintendo's like, no, we just want people to smile. And it's like, you know what? There's something beautiful in that, and I'm really glad it's back because not to switch gears, but like to go from Odyssey and thinking about that to that Last of Us 2 trailer, it hit me personally like a ton of bricks. Like, man, like, it's beautiful. It's beautiful that gaming has this wide variety of things it can do. But man, we've had so much of that dark and violent and everything. I'm like, Odyssey's been such a beautiful breath of fresh air. Just like things can just be fun and cute and cool, and it doesn't all have to be about who can make the most realistic combat.
I agree with that. And what's great too is like Nintendo kind of has like this thing now where it's like, all those great indies you've been playing on these other ones, or maybe you missed them. How'd you like to take them on the go?
Yeah,
that's another poll.
You see so many developers come out now and say like, oh, my indie game is doing way better than it's done on any other platform. You know what I mean? Whether it be on PC or PS4 or Xbox, they've come out and said, Switches has been a success for us. So, you know what I mean? That's another market where Nintendo can, kind of cornerstone that and take advantage of it.
Yeah, because you just had Image and Form come out today and said that the PS4 and Xbox sales of SteamWorld Dig are nowhere close to what it's doing on Switch.
Right.
That's kind of crazy.
Interesting. Yeah. Matt, someone in the live chat wants to know. He wonders. J Street wonders what Switch sales would be like without Zelda and Mario.
Well, lower. I mean, people buy consoles to play games, and when you get two of the best games ever made in the launch year of a new platform, it's going to result in a whole bunch of sales. Mm-hmm. I mean, like Dreamcast was great tech, but it didn't have the games, and it went away. Also because of piracy, some other things. But I mean, content is why people buy consoles. Well, at least sane people. Another bunch of insane people.
Can you repeat that again?
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, most people buy these things to play games, and having two fantastic games will do that.
So content.
Yeah, because we're led to believe that it's not about games anymore, you know? And in a lot of cases, it's that narrative gets lost. It's like, wait a minute, we do this for games.
Of course. And you know what? Jeff Grubb, who's over at GamesBeat and VentureBeat, he had a great line today where he was like, Switch is the PS4 for people that don't post about games on Reddit and Reset Era all day. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, you know, like we have like the core niche of folks that are really into power and specs. Like, thank God for them, because they buy a lot of games, and you know, of course, the industry loves them. But I mean, that's not 90% of the market. 90% of the market is, hey, I want to play the next Madden, or I want to play the next Call of Duty, and they're buying a box that their friends have to do it. They have no idea what resolution is or frame rate or any of that stuff. So, but yeah, without Zelda and Mario, Switch sales wouldn't be as good as they are. But you know, that's why they put out Zelda and Mario.
Of course.
That had to be very deliberate, right? Like, that's why people were kind of saying that the Switch was probably a little rushed, you know, to hit that March launch. I think it was March, right?
March,
yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you want to get that Zelda out the first part of the year. You know you're going to have Mario hitting the later part of the year. Those are two of their juggernauts, you know, going into the holiday.
Incredibly smart. Yeah. They've had one release a month, and it's been incredibly smart, and it's paced well. And I mean, I don't think there's ever been a better year one slate for any console. Mm-hmm. And it's absolutely genius that they've pulled this off so far. It's amazing, and someone will write a book about it someday.
Yeah, there you go.
Matt, do you think they can continue the success? Will they be as consistent next year?
If they're going to have a couple more 95+ rated games, sure. It's too early to say without knowing what the slate is next year. But boy, they've done everything right so far. So we'll see how it goes. But they sure could.
And I just you say like they've had like the best launch lineup like ever. I'm just like racking my brain trying to think if there's like what other consoles have come close. I mean, like I thought the Dreamcast had a great launch lineup.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I thought in my mind it was one of the best in recent memory.
I mean, you'll have consoles that have one big game, like the X360 with Call of Duty 2, right? It had an 87% attach rate and a really high rated, changed the industry, but one game, right? And it's super rare you get two games that will be all-time classics in the first calendar year of launch. Of course, launching in March helps; it gives you more runway, but still.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, considering like you technically, or you potentially have two Game of the Year contenders in the first year on one platform.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, I
think you guys are forgetting the forever classic Killzone Shadowfall.
Hey Matt, what's going on, man?
Hello,
that's Saki's favorite game.
Saki will be joining me when I get home. Once Saki found out Matt was going to be on the show, they would have to be a part of it. You guys don't understand how much Saki loves NPD Matt.
I love Saki so much. I can't even tell you.
Matt, thanks for joining us, man. I appreciate it, bro.
Yeah.
So, Matt, are you driving right now? You said you're not at home.
I am.
Right.
I had a work call and so I had to leave the house to go like conference call it away from distraction. But I'm driving home and wanted to chime in because I love you guys.
No, man, no doubt, man. It's like I said, it's always a pleasure to have you on, man. Thank you. So I don't know how much you heard. We've been singing the praises of Nintendo and the Switch, and just how well they've done. I mean, what are your thoughts, Matt?
It has the new Picross game on it, and that's really all I need. We laugh about it, but no other system has Picross, and I actually have not started Super Mario Odyssey because I have not finished Picross yet. It's at that level of addiction for me.
Nice.
Saki, however, is like 300 moons into Super Mario Odyssey, so it's ridiculous.
That's
but
hilarious.
No, I love the Switch. I talked about it earlier. Just the fact that in January, none of us really believed Nintendo would be in the position they are in now. The reveals, we laughed about the rooftop Switch parties and 1-2 Switch and all the silly things about it, and then it came out. We a lot of people, myself included, dismissed it as a Zelda machine because all the other games coming out were just Wii U ports, and it was very easy to write it off. And then I've never been happier to eat crow because I always knew I was going to get one and enjoy it, but I never could have predicted it would be this level of insanity. Because how do you hit Wii levels of popularity twice? And I'm very proud of them because some of my favorite games this year are on the Switch, both indie and AAA, and next year just looks even stronger.
Yeah, no, and you know what's really cool too about Nintendo? I saw someone asked about Rocket League being crossplay. That Nintendo's actually allowing crossplay.
Yeah,
which I think's great. And interesting that Sony's not, but I mean, I think that's wonderful that they're doing that.
Especially considering how archaic and backwards all the rest of their online policies are.
Yeah, no kidding.
This is true. And that's the one, I think if I have any criticism of them, is that they do so many things great, and then like you just mentioned, Matt, with their online policies and some of the features. I know we talked about when Splatoon came out, the whole headset
voice
situation.
chat. Well, also, I just cannot wait for the day when I don't need a friend code to add somebody.
Right.
Oh yeah, man.
Just give me your name and let me add you. And I get it. Make it a parental guidance, like a parental option for children to have to use a friend code. But I don't know. I was really hoping 3 generations into Nintendo Online we wouldn't still be doing friend codes.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean,
I agree.
Those small annoyances are such a small drop in the bucket in how great the Switch is. I think I've docked it at least maybe twice total. The Switch is always in handheld mode for me, and I travel a lot, and it's just been such a boon to be able to play multiplayer games on a flight with somebody, or just have it in bed while I'm trying to relax after a long day. And it's the perfect companion console to whether you're an Xbox or PlayStation guy. A Switch is the perfect secondary console because of its nature of just being able to go everywhere the others can't.
I agree with you 110%, man. It really is like the perfect companion console when you have the other ones. Absolutely. Does anyone have any other questions Nintendo related for Matt before we move on to the next topic?
No.
Oh, I have one for Matt.
Go for it.
Matt, you mentioned earlier, and we've talked about this before, that it seems that Nintendo might be positioning themselves to make a Switch a multi-console option for homes. Do you think they usually tie those initiatives to a game? Do you think Pokemon Switch will be the game where they really push households to get more than one Switch?
Yes, absolutely. I think there'll be so much around that game, and it's so important for the long term. Just how high is high. I think, yeah, and when Pokemon lands is going to have huge implications for my forecast. So I'm very excited to learn more about when that might be coming. If anything, if Pokemon Go and Pokemon Sun and Moon last year taught us anything, it was that No matter how many years it's been, Pokemon makes everybody a kid again, and that's going to have a huge impact. So yeah, I think that's the game.
Yeah, I mean, we just anecdotally, we've already discussed it between us. Saki getting a second Switch when Pokemon comes out.
Well,
You can't share.
The tub, right? Needs to get when she gets in the tub.
Exactly. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, you can't play Pokemon on the same console, and who wants to share Pokemon?
Can't do it.
So
you can't share Pokemon.
So I'm in agreement with Matt about that Pokemon will be the true push, and I don't think it's ever really been done before, trying to lobby families to buy more than one of a single console.
Nope.
No, unless it's hardcore. I know guys out there that got multiple like PS4s and Xbox Ones, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but those people that wasn't being pushed as an option. Those are just people that wanted that.
That's true. Yeah,
I think it'll be different to see Nintendo actually market it as a system like a handheld.
Mm-hmm.
Buy one for each of your kids. So who knows?
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. I hear you. I want to move to our next topic, and it's regarding the Sony press conference at the Paris Game Show. Did everyone watch the press conference?
Yeah. Yep.
Most of it, yeah.
Matt, since you're our guest this evening, what were your thoughts just overall? And then we'll probably get into a couple. We'll dive into because I know we talked about mature content, dark themes. We'll get into some of that regarding the Sony press conference in a little bit. But what were your just overall thoughts on the press conference?
So much like E3 was, it's more trailers without a lot of other information, release dates, plans. I get it. These things build interest over time, but I wonder if we're starting to lose some of the impact. So when Sony first did this at E3 a couple years ago, people lost their minds, and it was heralded as the best conference ever. And it's kind of been one note since then. So along with like the super dark themes of most of the games presented, I'm wondering like when things start to switch up. The games looked fine. I thought the Detroit trailer was really disturbing for unnecessary means, and I thought The Last of Us 2 had gratuitous violence without a lot of context. But I know I'm in the minority in some of these opinions. So I don't know.
You're not.
Mixed. I guess I'm mixed feelings where I'm at. Hello, Saki.
Saki has made an appearance.
Saki's back, and Saki has strong feelings about The Last of Us.
I wish John was here to see this.
John would have an answer.
John would. Too funny.
But we love Saki, and Saki loves NPD Matt, so.
Aw, Saki.
Big shout out to Saki.
Jesus.
Oh, yeah, so Mike, I see Mike's on the show now that I can look at my phone. Is this your first time meeting Saki?
Yes, it is. It is.
Mine too.
I think it's everyone's first time. I've only seen Saki on SDG.
Or Nolan cast. It's not just for me. But no.
Yes, and Nolan cast too.
It's everyone's favorite hand puppet with terrible opinions.
They're not all bad.
They're controversial at times.
And also, anyone ever makes fan art of Saki, you're always entered to win a free game.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah. I have so many free codes of games lying around for Steam and other systems that I've decided to give them out for fan art of Saki.
There you go.
Wow,
there
nice.
you go.
So,
I might have to take you up on that offer, Matt.
Please do. Remember, it's hashtag Saki Bless.
All right.
All right. That's a wrap on that one. Okay. Please. I've derailed the show enough with Saki.
Matt, go ahead. We were talking about Sony's press conference.
Yes.
NPD, Matt.
Oh, me? Yeah. Well, those were my overall thoughts. I thought, I mean, can you believe? Like, I can't believe it's right. Growing up in the '80s with Atari 2600, and you look at some of the graphical quality and the games that were presented at that show, it makes your jaw drop to realize where we're at as an industry and the art that's being made, finding the boundaries of it. And I think we're kind of moving into some new ground, which I think is great overall, that we're able to really push the boundaries with the art, the medium is. But man, some of that stuff was unsettling in that show to me personally. But I'm sure it doesn't have an impact on the sell-through. It's just it was an interesting show in a lot of ways for me.
No, I agree, and we'll talk a little bit more about those two trailers. What about the rest of you guys? What did you guys think in terms of what Sony showed, and any disappointments, any criticisms, or anything that really stood out?
At least for me, like, I've talked about this throughout the year. One of the big things that I have an issue with is all the trailers that we see. And when you look at their first party output, it's not really that high. You know what I mean? They've leaned pretty heavy on second and third party content. And we got, a couple of first party games, but when you look at all the trailers that have they've been shown the past year or two, all of those are from first party, and we continue to wait on those games to be released. So that's probably my biggest issue. The standouts for me at the show, though, was Ghost of Tsushima, the Sucker Punch game. You know what I mean? That's probably my most highly anticipated game from Sony's first party right now. The Concrete Genie game was pretty dope. That definitely has my interest. Anything that has a type of art style will always have my interest. And then as far as the VR stuff, Truth and Blood really stood out for me, and kind of has me on the fence right now if I'm ready to take that plunge into VR, because I think they took that London Hype gameplay and kind of expanded a little bit. So that definitely has me more interested in VR and possibly going that route. So
I was really impressed with all the VR games that they debuted and showed. And because as an owner, always looking for more stuff to play, and there was several in the pre-show and the sizzle reel that had me going, "Oh, good! It won't be collecting dust in 2018," because everyone knows Sony has a habit of completely abandoning their extra efforts. Move games or 3D games on the PS3, or man, remember the iToy? I remember.
Oh yeah.
What was that? The jumping card game that played like Magic of the Gathering. I spent way too much money on that in the PS3 days, but it's nice to see that first party hasn't completely abandoned VR, and it seems like there's actually a lot coming on down the pipeline.
Right. I tweeted out about that, Matt.
My favorite game is one no one ever talks about, and maybe it's because I just love this type of game, whether it's a Hidden Agenda or Until Dawn, stuff, Telltale games, but that game Erica that played like a choose your own adventure live action game. It looked like a mix of that Steam game Her Story mixed with Until Dawn.
Yep.
And there's just something about that, because Ghost of Tsushima is of course up there, but right now all we have is a concept,
Right.
and the belief that Sucker Punch won't let us down.
Right.
Erica, I keep coming back to that game. I'm really excited. That and Onrush, which looks like MotorStorm meets Rocket League meets Burnout. Those were my surprises of the show.
Nice.
Well, it is. I mean, with Onrush, I think some of the people that worked in MotorStorm are working on that. So
yeah, they left to
makes
go join Codemasters. So I'm happy to see that it doesn't look boring, because I don't like Forza or Gran Turismo games because they're too realistic. Love Forza Horizon because it's less realistic. But I miss Burnout, and I miss Split, and I miss Blur, and I miss that genre of racing games that have disappeared, and Onrush looks to bring it back, and it makes me happy.
I think many of us have been clamoring and hoping for another Burnout since Burnout 3.
Right? What is Criterion doing lately? Does anyone actually know?
Are they even around? Are they still? I mean, are they still? I thought they weren't doing games anymore. I thought they had shut down. I could be wrong. I could totally be wrong, but No, you know, it's interesting. You mentioned the Sucker Punch game. Everyone's kind of, I think everyone was hyped because it's Sucker Punch, and we've been,
Yep.
you know, waiting for. I mean, it's look, that's like probably the worst kept secret, right, in the industry, that Sucker Punch is working on a new game. But it also reminded me of something that, and something I've been vocal about with my frustration with regards to Microsoft. You know, they're working on a brand new IP, you know, brand new AAA IP, and it's like. It kind of you know, it picks at that scab for me with how I feel about Microsoft, and how I feel like they should. I mean, they won't do it, but you know, let some of their studios try to take some creative risk and make some new IPs. But
I gotta give both Nintendo and Sony credit for that, because they do let people branch out. Because can you imagine if they said no to Guerrilla Games wanting to make an open world RPG, and they're like, no, we need a new Killzone, or no to Naughty Dog when they wanted to stop making Uncharted to make Last of Us, and then Sucker Punch went from Sly Cooper to Infamous, and now they could have made another Infamous, but they're letting loose with a brand new IP. And sure, some might fail. They might not all be winners, but we at least have the option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so some of my takeaways were how people kind of got lost in the weeds. Like you said, you know, yeah, okay, they kind of, you know, show some of the games that they've already shown, like, you know, from 2 prior E3s, right? And people kind of got stuck on stupid in that regard. But I'm like, but in between that, you got treated to new IP that are coming. You know, them, like we just said, expanding and trying some new things. And one of the things I kind of tweeted out was, I said, like, and kind of piggyback on what you just said, Matt, a moment ago, people were like, oh, why are they wasting all this time on VR? And I'm like, when they were doing VR, the first thing people were saying was, you know, they're not going to support it. They're going to drop it right away. And it's like, here they are. They're showing you, no, we're supporting it, and we're bringing things to the table. And everyone's pissed off that they're showing it.
And they were completely new games shown at E3.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's 2 major conferences throughout the year where they've debuted numerous new VR games coming out. And anyway, continue.
Yeah. No, but that's, you know, kind of the thing that I want to say. And it's like, and okay, you know, so they were showing footage from the same games, but the fact of the matter is, all of these are games that you will potentially, if you're a PS4 only owner, will have to look forward to. If you are just a PS4 owner, you have those games to look forward to. You know, and then, you know, for the longest, people were like, oh, you know, Sony shows all this footage, all these different games, but, you know, then those games are 2 years out. They show release dates too soon, then they get delayed. Now they're pulling back on that, showing the games. And okay, maybe they're showing them a little too much. I don't kind of agree with that, but they don't get the release date because maybe they're trying to get closer, which at the same time, people kind of give Microsoft a pass for this. Oh, well, they're not showing any of these release dates or games because they don't want to do it too soon. Sony's doing the same exact thing.
Well,
you know?
Yeah, you gotta look at it both sides of the coin, man. You know what I mean? You got to play it fair, and you can't criticize one company for doing something and the other company's doing the same exact thing.
Exactly.
Maybe I'm wrong, or maybe personally, I don't mind having it known way out, because I like to know what's on the horizon. I like to know what I'm playing years down the line. And with Xbox, it's Crackdown, Sea of Thieves, and State of Decay 2 have been known entities for years as well. But during the drought of the Xbox One first-party games of this year, it made me know, like, you know, next year will be different. Next year we're getting those games. And that's the flip side to complaining that they keep showing the same games year after year, is, you know, there's still more stuff to play.
Right.
So
And
I personally like it, and I don't.
I'm with you. Yeah.
Some people don't.
I'm in the same boat. Like, I never had a problem with, okay, a release date was announced and maybe it wasn't met, because especially nowadays in this era of gaming, we're like hit over the head and inundated with games way beyond what any of us can possibly finish.
Yep.
You know, so usually nowadays when a delay happens, you kind of go, whew, okay.
Oh yeah, thank you.
You know, thank you.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Holiday.
But everyone has this mentality where it's like, you know, oh, I didn't get the release date, so I don't know how to be prepared. Okay, whatever. You know, it's like, you know, that game's coming. You know, And kind of with Sony, it's not going to be canceled. It's coming. Eventually you're going to get it. And pretty much you're going to get this game probably the first part of the year. Whether it's, Spider-Man or God of War at this point. It's coming. But they had other games mixed in there that look really interesting. Like you said, the Erica game. And then we said, was it the Genie game? I can't think of the name of it. Concrete Genie. All those kind of got buried because people got stuck on stupid.
All the pre-game show stuff too. Well, it's like with Xbox, a lot of people forget how great their E3 showing was because it wasn't just the same AAA games. They showed all these indie and smaller games that are coming to the Xbox, and there's still a lot that I'm excited about. And for Xbox, like Cuphead and Ori are some of my favorite Xbox One games, and they're not what you would consider the quote-unquote like conference.
The conference winner.
I don't know, yeah. But those are that I get excited for. And then there's those other upcoming ones, like I forgot the name, the Artful Escape or something.
Yeah, the Artful Escape and Last Night or Last Light. Yeah.
Games are great, and they're not typically what you associate with Xbox. And it's really nice that they're branching out genres through indie games because that's the course PlayStation took at the beginning of this generation. And it really helped them. It does not hurt to have a breadth of genres available through indie games to supplement your first-party output. So I applaud both companies and Switch as well. I'm really happy that all three are pursuing indie games to help shore up their weaker months of the year.
Matt, real quick, the other Matt. What are your thoughts on Microsoft? And look, I'm not trying to pick on Microsoft here. I'm just interested in getting your insight because you work in the industry. What are your thoughts about their almost, I guess, reluctance to allow some of their studios to try new IPs or try different things as opposed to what Sony does?
Yeah, it's really interesting to hop back to something Eric was saying. Eric, I completely agree with you on the release date thing from a consumer perspective. I'm a little biased. I got to build a forecast. I really like the
Well, you have a professional interest.
I get what you're saying, and then we didn't even mention Tennis World Tour and the guys from Topspin making the tennis game. I think that's awesome.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Anyways, so I wrote about Microsoft and the Xbox One a few months ago. Man, never has so much written on so few things. So the X1X. Everything seems to be riding on that. How many units are they making? How much are they going to ship? What kind of consumer demand is out there for that price point on that kind of box with that kind of slate, right? And then PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is the one title they have, and it's coming in the middle of December now. Is that going to be enough to really generate big demand in December for the box if it stumbles out of the gate, right? So, and then you look beyond that. Well, Microsoft wants to make everything service-based. That's been their MO across their entire slate of products. How does this fit in long-term? What is the long-term home of the box and what they're doing? It's all kind of cloudy to me. I think so much rides on how well One X does and can it reinvigorate? Can it pull in new people? How well PUBG does, and then what happens next? So of all the companies, I'm most uncertain about what that future looks like, not because people don't want the box and it's not doing well, because it is, at least in the US market. I just don't know what the long-term play is quite yet. So I don't know. Like it's a bit of a mystery.
Yeah, I think it's a mystery for a lot of us. And Frodo, what are your thoughts, man? I know you and I've talked about this quite a bit, but just kind of share your thoughts with regarding Microsoft's seeming reluctance, I think, to try new things.
Oh, I mean, look, Microsoft thinks that they could just come into this generation and ride on the coattails of the 360 and their successful AAA titles, and they could just ride on that and lather, rinse, repeat, and they would beat to the market, they would beat with the price, they would beat with the message, and it was just downhill from there. So now people they've had a few years now to kind of reverse that course and prove to us that, you know, they are looking towards making games that we want to play. And it looks like, you know, they haven't taken that opportunity well enough. I mean, 2017 must have been the worst year for an Xbox console ever, in my opinion, in terms of content. But, you know, they think that they'll catch up with the power narrative. I'm not sure. And I think Matt's right. I think it's really difficult to forecast it because, you know, not only the price of the box, but has the narrative really changed 100% to power? I don't think it has. I don't think it will. And if anything, I think with this, we've been talking about the Paris Games Week opener, the keynote that Sony had. I think that proves that people are excited for new stuff, and we've all been talking about how refreshing it is for Nintendo and Sony to have you know, new stuff on the board. And here's Microsoft still with, you know, the E3 conference. I agree with Nola over there, and I agree that I thought the conference was excellent, but you know, you don't have people talking about that. You have people talking about, you know, Sony killing it at Paris Games Week. You don't really have people talking about, you know, the stuff coming from Microsoft. So I don't know. It's hard to forecast it, and I think it's a really difficult thing for Microsoft to show the advantage of the box to people that don't have 4K TVs. So I think that's an inherent problem. So I mean, I think you can go either way with the X. I'm really excited for next week because I want to see really how many people are going to get this thing, and then we've heard about shortages because the demand is so high. So I don't know. It's really either hit or miss, I think.
I don't think the holidays will be an issue. I think it'll sell very well this holiday. Question is, what happens after the hardcore that have been salivating for the X when they bought it? What happens?
That's a great point.
That's the
Well, yeah, it depends on how much they ship too. Like, what are their expectations? Do they think they're going to push 1.5 million this holiday in the U.S. or do they think they're going to push 600K? Right? Like, and how? So like, if there are boxes sitting on shelves December 31st, that's a problem, right? So, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Apologies.
No, we're yeah, and actually, this is, you know, since we're talking about Microsoft, I'll go ahead and backtrack. We'll backtrack to what I wanted to talk about with the Sony press conference and the trailers for Last of Us 2 and Detroit. But since we're talking about Microsoft, and Matt, you kind of gave some insight there in terms of, you know, how well, you know, you think they might do this holiday. So we're a week away from, well, less than a week now. We're 6 days away from launch. And Matt, I think you think that they're going to. I think we all agree. I think they're going to sell well. You know, launch. I think that there's probably there's more people out there willing to make that upgrade, who are, you know, Xbox owners than they were on the PlayStation side when the Pro came out. That's just, and so I think you'll see more people go out and probably buy the Xbox One X. I think much at launch, at least much in that launch window, much quicker than was the case with the PlayStation 4 Pro. Do you kind of feel like that's the case, Matt, with the Xbox One X?
Yeah, the messaging has been much more on point than it was around the Pro launch. All of the messaging for 6 months now has been around this. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think the initial push is going to be strong, especially with current owners. But how do they expand that pie is, I think, the big question. Like what Matt was saying, you know, this year's probably okay. What does the first half of next year look like, and you know, how the price is impacted and all that. So yeah.
I mean, there's already leaked Black Friday ads of the Xbox One S at $199, right?
$189.
$189.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you guys think that's how that's gonna do? Because the reason I asked this, I wanted to ask Matt this because since last year, you know, and we've seen the NPDs drop and everything, and the Xbox One S has been coming in like a really distant, like, last to the other two consoles, right? And the first thing you just see people say is, "Oh, it's because everybody's waiting on the X." I'm like, everybody can't be waiting on the X. Not everybody. when you look at terms of, like you said, 90% of the standard consumer, they're not even interested in that. So how does that do throughout the holiday? Does that pick up?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the bet, right? So I mentioned this on the other podcast I'm on with Saki, something called the Osborne effect. It's really fun. You should go check it out. Osborne Computer had a line of computers out there in the early 80s. They had a new model coming that was going to be bigger, better, faster, and they announced it early, and then everyone canceled their orders of the current version of the Osborne, and then the company went under before they could put out the next fancy big box everyone's excited about, right? So that's why when Apple announces a product, you can buy it right away. It's the Osborne effect. And so like you're making the bet that what's happened so far is the announcement of the One X has made people wait to buy, right? So that's when people are saying that people are waiting on the X, that's what they're implying. Is that the case, or is there just a lack of interest driven by a lack of content? I don't know. So that's why I'm very fascinated to watch the early returns on X and see how that goes. So I'm really uncertain about, like, I'm pretty certain about my PS4 number. I'm pretty certain about my Switch number. I am not certain at all about my X1 number because, man, it could go so many ways. Yeah,
and that's kind of my feeling on it when I see people, saying everybody's waiting on the X, and then some people are saying, the S is going to sell like the best. And honestly, for me personally, it's been that kind of thinking, like, I don't know what's going to happen. Honestly.
And there's been nothing, substantially unique about the Xbox, lineup in 2017. Like I kind of said earlier, it's been a very bad year for Xbox exclusive stuff.
Right.
And there's been nothing to kind of like, tempt potential owners to be like, oh man, can I hold out for the X? Maybe I'll just grab an S and then upgrade later.
Right.
If there was something, killer to make people do that, then, the adoption would have been higher and those MPD numbers could have certainly been closer. But, it's like, if there's nothing there to bring you in, if there's no, apple from the forbidden tree, then you're not going to bite, so.
Yeah. And what threw me off a little bit more was, you kind of started listening, go, okay, well, maybe people are waiting for the X. And then you have Phil come back out again and say, no, this is going to be the better seller. You're like, what are we, I don't know which one. It's like,
so let me ask you guys, if Microsoft had Zelda and Mario this year, would it sell better?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I think people underestimate the fact that, while theoretically, I guess you could say exclusives aren't as, people like to say, as important, but they definitely still matter. But I definitely think, content is king. And it's going to be interesting to see what PUBG does, how that, resonates with a broad audience. I know like a lot of the hardcore are in there, and I'm sure there are also people in there who probably still don't even know what PUBG is. They just keep hearing it and they're like, hyping that up. But it's just, what are you tying to this console? There is like no specific game that says this was created for the Xbox One X by us. Who knows their hardware better than them?
Yeah, you make a great point. The exclusive content thing, for a few years there, say 2014, 2015, exclusives really didn't matter a whole bunch. You couldn't really tell. Even going back to 2011, 2012, you really couldn't see big swings in performance based on exclusives. The last 2 years, exclusive content has been the driver of the difference. You can nail it. When you look at the data, it's pretty clear that the reason that there are these gaps is because of the exclusive content over the past couple of years. And it's become really important again, just in the recent couple of years here. So you make a great point. That's the thing, right? Like that's the piece that's really missing on that side.
Right.
So Matt, does that, you mentioned like there was years this console gen, last console gen, where exclusives didn't matter as much. So what was pushing, I guess, sales for consoles if it wasn't exclusives during that time, those time periods?
Well, I mean, everyone. So what I mean by not as important is I mean that you could not tie changes in the sales performance with launching or individual exclusive software titles. So it might have been important, but you couldn't tell that was the reason, if you know what I'm saying. Like the data was inconclusive on that, whereas in the last couple of years, the data is very clear. So perhaps they were just as important a few years ago, but when a big exclusive title would hit, it didn't swing sales like you see like this year and last year.
You know, well, yeah, because I mean, if you just look at Sony's exclusive lineup this year, like, you know, Horizon Zero Dawn, obviously a lot of people were into that. I mean, look at the exclusive lineup they have coming, you know, the Paris Games Week stuff. It's all fresh AAA content. The exclusive stuff for Microsoft in the first few years, you know, a lot of it was, you know, rehashes, or not rehashes, but, you know, new iterations of existing franchises. Yes, Sunset Overdrive was excellent and unfortunately undersold. You know, like Rise Son of Rome, I thought was good, but didn't do well out of the gate, was reviewed poorly. But, like, I think with the exclusives on Sony's side, at least, a lot of it was new, like, refreshing, new content, not necessarily like Gears of War 4 and Halo, another one, you know, Halo 5, Halo 6, Halo, you know what I mean?
Another one.
It's like, no, seriously though. I mean, that's how it's viewed. It's almost viewed as a negative, or I think with Microsoft, I think out of the gate, it was almost like viewed as a negative by a lot of people that they had exclusives, because the exclusives that they did have were just new versions of old stuff, not refreshing new titles.
Yeah, and for a few years there, like the big things that were driving the market were GTA, Call of Duty, Battlefield, like these Madden. The big third-party titles were driving sales, so like those impact both platforms kind of similarly. It's only in the last couple of years that the Sony first-party exclusives have really kind of pushed themselves to the forefront in terms of driving volume one way or the other, and it's being driven towards the Sony side. So a little bit difference in how the market's working these days versus, you know, 5 years ago.
Does that also have to do with the fact that, you know, out of the gate, Sony was obviously $100 cheaper and came earlier to the market than Xbox One, and nowadays the price gap is not, you know, substantial at all. If anything, the Xbox consoles are cheaper, so maybe that's kind of in the playing field a little bit.
Yep, for sure.
Interesting. Yeah. So that's
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that the interesting piece for me then, we go back to the Xbox One X, is it seems like I mean, obviously they are. I mean, I think we all know they're really banking on this power narrative and marketing this box. And look, and this isn't a knock against Microsoft. I just want to put that out there because I know we'll get some people that will leave some nasty comments in the comment section. They'll get upset. They'll be like, you know what you're talking about, Enrique? It's the power. And I get that. I get that they're you know, it's an impressive piece of technology. It's an impressive piece of hardware for home console. I mean, it's impressive. I think my frustration with them is, you know, where's that game that makes me say I need to go out and buy an Xbox One X?
Well,
and I don't see that.
The argument is the existing third-party titles that everyone's already playing, that they're gonna look great. But then again, they're already playing them. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna, you know, switch over from The Witcher from your PS4 Pro to get the, you know, native 4K assets on Witcher 3 on your Xbox One X? No, people aren't going to do that. That's the problem. That's therein lies the problem, I think.
Well, I think some people might, but not a lot of people will. You know, I think those enthusiasts will probably make the switch. I think I could see that.
I don't know, man. You ask them to reinvest into a new console and buy the same game over again. I mean, you may get a handful of people to do that, but most consumers aren't doing that.
Right.
I mean, like
handful, yeah. Yeah.
So Matt, are they banking on that then? Is that kind of like what that people are going to make the switch, you know, from either a PS4, or people are going to go out and buy 4K TVs to get an Xbox One X? Because I always feel like that's always a piece that no one talks about, is that if you don't have a 4K TV, you still have to go buy a 4K TV, and then it's no longer a $500 device. It's a $500 device plus potentially another $400,000 or $500,000.
Yeah, I mean, they're absolutely pushing the power narrative and have been for a while. Is it going to work? Man, I'd like it to. I don't have. I want to believe. I'm buying one. I'm looking forward to playing ACO on it. But I'm a crazy person, and I upgrade my consoles and have all of them. The mass market, though, are they going to be able to break out and really kind of reinvigorate with the mass? I mean, that's tough. So, like, you're betting on the power piece, and then you're betting on the people who, like us, are enthusiasts, getting it, and then telling our the friends and family that we influence that this is the system that you have to buy, right? And so they're kind of betting that the influencers among the core gaming set are going to spread that message, which in the middle of a generation when people already have kind of their friends lists the way they are and have their buddies on their system of choice, that's a big ask. And that's a tall ask, and we'll have to see how it goes. I'm fascinated just from looking at the science of it, but it's a tough proposition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. And like you, I think, and like I think the rest of us here on the panel, I think we're all kind of fascinated to see how this thing kind of pans out, because I think, at least my opinion, I think they have a lot riding on this, and how well I think this console does for them.
No, yeah. If this doesn't work out, there's just no getting back to where they need to be at. And honestly, as a primarily Xbox gamer, I don't like to think about it. But if this doesn't pan out, I mean, I would question the succession plan of the Xbox as a home console. As like a proprietary, unique home console, and then kind of like as Matt joked at the beginning of the podcast, are we going to see like a Win 10 box with a console GUI? Like that's kind of what we're going to move to if this thing doesn't work out, I think.
It wasn't a joke. Like, I'm serious. I think that's a very that might happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask, where would they go? I mean, if this doesn't mean major success for them, and like you said, it kind of mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, it'd just be a Win 10 box with some gaming features. So it'd be interesting.
Surface, like they did with Surface as a platform. I could see something similar for Xbox, where the Xbox becomes a Win 10 PC for the most part with Play Anywhere titles, and maybe that's why they're pushing the Win 10 Play Anywhere initiative. Who knows, right? Like, you can kind of see the seeds planted of a PC console
Steambox
unified platform. Yeah. And maybe that's the way they go. And they make it more of like the Xbox, and it just kind of like any other PC platform. You upgrade it over time or you don't, and your settings change over time. And maybe that's a solution. I don't know. There's the possibility. There's so many possibilities of how this could go. But I think, yeah, the One X is a crucial part of what comes next in the story.
That's interesting. I look at this, and I've always thought this for quite some time now. I think they're doing what Steam couldn't do with the Steam box. I always felt like Microsoft's heading in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, real quick, Matt, someone does have a question for you in the live chat. This comes from our good friend Lord Kaibutsu. I don't know if I ever pronounced that right. Is it Kaibutsu?
Kaibatsu.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, B. From the Iron Lords podcast. Matt, he wants to know your thoughts on the Xbox division stability. He doesn't think Microsoft is going anywhere, but would like your professional perspective on it.
Yeah, no, they're not going anywhere. They're very smart. They're funded. They know what they're doing. They have some of the best brains in the business. I wouldn't worry about that. The question is, how do you best address a market that's changed so fundamentally, that's service-based, that has games that retain people for longer periods than they ever have, that's moving to digital in a very rapid rate. Like, the whole ground is shifting underneath us as an industry. And I mean, I have so much respect for the people in that division and how smart they are and how they're approaching the problems in the future. And they're really trying to think of what's next down the line rather than trying to focus on what's right now. And so I'm optimistic that they'll figure it out. But man, I'm glad I don't have their problems, because those are big challenges. So yeah, I don't see any issues there. I mean, unless they have some kind of change of heart on going to more of a service strategy, and who knows, right? Things happen in weird ways very rapidly. So, but yeah, stability wise, it's fine.
All right. I don't think we have any other questions in the live chat for you, Matt, Microsoft related, but yeah, this is going to be interesting how this plays out this holiday. Have you forecasted an actual number yet for what you think how many units are going to move with the X?
Yeah, I put 600,000 out on the One X simply because I think that would be a smart number to make sure that you were able to satiate demand but not over satiate. Make sure make them leave them wanting a little bit. But I hear rumors that production is going to be much larger than that, so I wouldn't be surprised to be wrong by a factor. So I have 600,000 as a very conservative estimate, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's 1.2 million. So like we were saying, there's so many unknowns and uncertainties here. I know I'm going to be wrong, and I'm okay with that, because in order to be in the forecasting business in video games, you have to be really comfortable with being wrong, because you're wrong a lot.
Yeah. I could see $1 billion. I could see them doing that.
I could definitely see them doing that, especially if you can gauge anything off the pre-orders. I think that's kind of what I was just about to ask you, actually, Matt. Is if somebody in your position in determining the forecasts looks at stuff like pre-orders, or if you take, I know you talked about surveys earlier, and that's how you kind of gauged a little bit. But is there some sort of like survey that you guys do or look at in terms of how many people have pre-ordered this thing, and that's how you gauge your forecast? Or
no, pre-order data is held pretty tightly by these companies, obviously. So they'll talk to whether things are ahead or behind their goals, or things are strong, but you never really get a strong number because, I mean, obviously these kind of things have impact to stock prices, so they're proprietary, confidential, and held very tight. So no, I actually don't have any pre-order information at all.
No, I'm sorry. Maybe I phrased that wrong. I don't mean necessarily from the companies themselves. I mean like external data, which may be anecdotal or whatever. But do you guys look at anything like that, or?
You run into problems with sample sizes and how many people are pre-ordering off of your sample, and so the data becomes somewhat unreliable on short windows, especially when pre-orders ramp up so much right before launch. It's not good data, so yeah, no, the math doesn't work so well for that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Real quick, just want to say congratulations to, is it Patron Raleigh? Patron? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I butcher names all the time. Looks like he got the code for Assassin's Creed Origins for the Xbox One.
Nice, congrats.
Nice, congratulations.
Yeah, congrats. Yeah, I dropped that code in there.
I saw that. Sneaky.
Well, you snuck that in, man.
But I think you guys do that on Four Guys, right? Did you guys just randomly drop codes sometimes?
Oh, absolutely. Don't even announce, like you in the chat, or at least announcing it, being like codes incoming. I'll just be like, Control V, bitches. Like,
yeah, that's the way to do it, man.
Say, wait, what? You drop the code?
No, he said it's Patron, like the tequila drink. My man, I'm a big tequila fan. Love Patron. So, congratulations again, man. That's awesome.
Enjoy it, man.
Yeah, and we're actually while we're talking about giveaways, we're actually giving away a PlayStation 4 for the holidays. So compliments of our good friend Chicken Spaghetti.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we're gonna have some details coming shortly. The next 2 weeks, we're gonna have some details about our PlayStation 4 giveaway to our subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed yet, definitely subscribe, because I mean, heck, if you don't have a PS4, great opportunity for you to get a free PS4 during the holidays.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, does anyone else have any other thoughts, questions regarding Xbox One X?
No, I'm good.
No.
No. All right. Cool. So I want to backtrack a little bit and go back to the Sony press conference, because there's a lot of I guess controversy regarding 2 trailers that we saw. The Last of Us Part 2, which I was watching this at work, and I look down on my phone. I see somebody. And by the way, if you haven't seen the trailer, you don't want to be spoiled. Even planning on seeing it, I'm going to throw out spoiler alert. But yeah, I was at work, and I look down on my phone, and I see someone I see a female laying on the ground, and a guy basically taking a mallet to her arm. And I'm like, whoa, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
Is this a video game, or am I am I watching a movie? And I was kind of shocked, and then watching watching Detroit and watching what was a scene portraying domestic violence with a woman and a child, and that was really surprising to me, and not that I'm I understand violence in video games. I mean, it's just part of video games now. I think as technology improved, over the years, games became more realistic. We've seen games like Grand Theft Auto kind of push the boundaries in terms of violence and other mature related type of or mature related themes. And Matt, I know you had some things on Twitter to say, and I saw people say, "Oh, you're trying to say get rid of violence in video games," and I know that's not what you were saying, but I think part of the criticism has been why, and I see this, I kind of understand I understand within the context, people are okay, what's the context here? We're just seeing this trailer, but we're seeing this piece of we're seeing a trailer that just shows violence. How does that connect with the overall story? What's the context here? And I think many of us didn't know that, and a lot of us were questioning that. But I know you had some thoughts on it, and I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on the two trailers here, and if maybe that. I guess my question is, do you think this is probably done in poor taste?
So, okay, there's a separation here. On a personal level, I was unsettled by both, and maybe that was what they were going for. But what I was saying was more on a sales potential level. How are these two trailers helping sell the game? And maybe they are going for that, hey, we're pushing the boundaries of what this art form can do. I respect that. I get it. Given the show itself and the intent of pre-launch marketing, which is to drive purchase intent and get people buying games, was there a way that they could have done that a little bit differently and more effectively? That was my question. So, I mean, I'm all for free expression in gaming. I think the pushing the medium is fantastic. I respect the hell out of the artists doing what they do, despite my own oh my God, I don't want to watch this kind of personal feeling. So that's what that was coming from. And you know what? Maybe I'm just old and a little bit out of touch about what some other gaming segments might like. So I'm actually much more interested in hearing what the rest of you guys have to say about those trailers, because I'm trying to gather input about how I should best process this stuff for the audience, to be honest.
No, that's fair. And real quick before we get to the panel, David Cage actually did talk about this.
This is not the first time that we've seen stuff like this in David Cage's game either. So,
no, that's true. I mean, he definitely is someone who pushes the envelope. But he did get a little snippy with the person who did the interview, and he basically said, "Hey, look, if this was a movie or music that we're talking about, would you be asking me this question? And are you only asking me this question essentially because it's a video game?" And the journalist said, "No, I would have asked no matter what."
But I think because it isn't. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Matt. Go ahead, bud.
I'm saying they don't put that stuff in the trailers, right? You're doing the trailer part where it's more about building interest and mystique and wanting you to get you in the world, and then if it's in the game itself, great. But is this the best way to market the game? That was my question.
Right. And because it's in the trailer, it makes your mind wander. And for me, it kind of made me circle back to, okay, is this like a lot of what you're going to be doing, or is this going to be a one shot, or like is this a constant theme through the game? Because if that Last of Us trailer is any indication of what the entire game is going to be like, not interested. Got to be honest. I mean, I'm not like, this violence hating, like, holier than thou person. I love violence in games, obviously, but like if I'm going to be, by playing a game, and that's interesting that you mentioned about that interview about them asking, oh, if it was since it's a video game, is that why you're asking me? Well, in a video game, like, you get that impression that you're the one doing it. Like, you're playing the game, you're carrying out that action. Whereas in a movie, you're watching somebody tell you a story. It's not like you're there controlling those actions or whatnot. So I think that's why, even though it's, some people may think it's silly to say that a video game is any more interactive or any different than a movie in conveying, themes or creative license or whatever. I think it is different because you're playing the video game. So in some regard, you are the one kind of like doing that in the game. I'm not saying that, games lead to violence, but I mean, it is like something that you're controlling in that virtual space.
No, that's a great point. And, David Cage actually touches upon, the one thing here in the interview. He says that, he's creating something that, I'll quote, he says, he's like, I'm creating something that I find moving and meaningful. And I think people should see the scene, play the game, and see it in context to really understand it. The rule I give myself is to never glorify violence, to never do anything gratuitous. It has to have a purpose, have a meaning, and create something that is hopefully meaningful for people. And I understand what he's saying there, and I think probably, after playing the game, we'll probably have a better understanding of how that scene ties into, this character. But that's really hard to gauge in a, what is it, like a 2-minute trailer?
Mm-hmm. Right.
It totally made me think, like, okay, is this game about, because the game's about artificial intelligence, and I think and the artificial intelligence and how they, I guess, clash with humans.
It's how they start to feel like they are humans. And
okay, I figured I was probably oversimplifying it, but yeah, you're right, Ben.
Right.
But I didn't get any of that from the trailer.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but no, that's exactly what I got from that trailer. It's like, it's kind of showing you that something's going from being sentient to actually having an emotion and attachment, which it's not supposed to have.
Yeah.
So I think, I kind of understood the context of that more so probably than the context of The Last of Us. But even watching The Last of Us trailer, I was kind of like, I understand the world of The Last of Us. And it didn't like affect me, but I was kind of more taken aback by people's reaction. And then I kind of remember just the internet. So people kind of take things and go a step further with it. So yeah, I think of it in a trailer setting like that, it can make you feel uncomfortable, like, Matt was saying a moment ago, when you're going through the beats of the game, if something like that comes up, you get uncomfortable, you process it, and you kind of move forward. Or even Mike's concerned that, is this the whole tonal beat of the game? But at the same time, people kind of running further with it because, like, the thing I kind of said to you guys was 11 million people watched League and turned somebody's head into hamburger meat. And that's all people talked about for 4 weeks of how awesome that scene was.
Yeah. And, for me, that's kind of what I related The Last of Us to trailer to. You know what I mean? Like, when it first comes on, I see him dragging a body and about to hang somebody. I'm like, yo, you know what I mean? Are they going to push it to the edge? Are they going to go this crazy? You know what I mean? And then the female character who's hanging the one girl that they're dragging or whatever, you know what I mean? That's the first thing I thought of, like, yo, this is like the female Negan, you know what I mean? She's badass, you know what I mean? She's running the town around there, you know what I mean? She's making the people feel like she's the one in charge, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. See the other bodies hanging off the tree and whatnot. So then when they capture the other girl and she spits in her face, it's like, yo, clip her wings, you know what I mean?
Right.
She's disrespecting me. I'm not having it, you know what I mean? And I totally understood that, you know what I mean, from the nemesis standpoint. So I didn't have a problem with the trailer. It got me thinking more about the game and the potential of who that character was. You know what I mean? A lot of people are speculating that was Ellie's mom, and that could have been like some prequel things going on there. So it got me thinking more about the game and the potential of what the game could be, and not really where dwelling on the violence of the trailer itself.
It's a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah, that's kind of like, I can almost see, and I'm not saying this was the result of it, but I can kind of see them watching that scene from The Walking Dead and kind of thinking, oh, that got people intrigued. We can probably pull the same thing. And probably after seeing that and seeing the reaction, like, oh, so we took a step too far, you know?
Yeah.
Because, just using the Walking Dead scene in comparison, I felt that was way more gruesome than what I saw in the Last of Us thing.
Right.
So it's just like, it was an interesting take to see the reaction on Twitter later,
While you might be right about like Walking Dead was more brutal, that scene also wasn't used as the primary marketing for Walking Dead at a giant worldwide conference, and I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
That people take that trailer and that is taken as the marketing. That is the thing that they chose to showcase to the world, all ages, because that's what trailers are. And a lot of this could have been avoided had they put some kind of warning in front, like warning, this trailer contains graphic violence or something. Viewer discretion advised, like they do in front of Walking Dead episodes. But they just kind of plopped you in with no context. And I'm sure Naughty Dog, with context, that scene will be very powerful. We did not have that benefit. Honestly, if you didn't already know what The Last of Us was about, you would be very confused about why we were watching all of this happen. But the result is it had no context. It was hyper graphic violence. And me as a fan of Last of Us, I got that context, but you can't just assume that for everybody. And I think it was a very odd choice because usually Naughty Dog kills it on trailers. They have a great sense of what goes well. And I think this was just a weird misstep from them. Because they usually don't do stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it was definitely interesting. I mean, I've played the game, and Eric, you and I always talk about that one scene in The Last of Us that kind of really punches you in the gut. That kind of sets the tone for the game, I think. But I was left wondering. I was like, after watching the trailer, I was like, okay, are they taking this to a darker place for the sake of taking it to a darker place? And that's the part that concerns me a little bit. Like, don't make something darker just for the sake of trying to be edgy or making it darker. The game, I think, and the story was sufficient enough the way it is now. I don't think they need it, and I don't know if they're because we don't know the context of that scene. I don't know if they're taking it or trying to make it darker. I don't think they need to make it darker just based on my experience in the last game.
Well, let me ask you guys this: where else would The Last of Us go from where it was at, where it left off?
Well, spoilers, right? No.
Yeah, I know that's.
You know what I mean? Like, the game is called The Last of Us. People are dying. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's about to get gruesome. So where else did you think the game was going to go?
Well, I mean, I think the game was pretty graphic. The first one was pretty graphic. I think the challenge is trying to figure out in what context does that scene exist. We don't know that, and I'm just saying, like, I don't want to see him focus on making a game darker for the sake of it being darker, because we've seen that happen in movies and other games, and sometimes it doesn't work. And I think that game as it is, is perfect. I mean, it's one of the best games I've ever played.
Right. And the impression you get by them using that in a trailer is that, or that's the fear that you have by them using it in a trailer and putting that front and center, is that they're doing it just for the sake of doing it, and of course, I mean, B-Money, your point's taken very well. I mean, where else are they going to go with Last of Us? And, don't want to do spoilers, but there really isn't much more to go there, I guess. But, it's, I don't know. I kind of see Nola's point with, like, it's front and center. There was no warning. It was kind of like a catch you off guard moment that I think that's why more people are talking about it than if it were just like, you know, on YouTube with like some sort of M rating displayed or whatever. I think that's kind of why people are caught off guard as well.
Yeah.
Well, didn't it happen?
I mean, I agree
did it
with
happen
that.
like after Spider-Man, or was it Detroit that happened after Spider-Man? I think that was part of it too. They were saying like the flow was a little off.
Right. I can't remember. I can't remember.
They
the
closed
order.
the show with The Last of Us, right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
they did. I think they
Yeah,
did.
they
Yeah.
did. Yeah.
They closed it.
What were you saying,
BD,
B?
you were saying-
I mean, I agree with that too. I feel like they probably could have put a warning up there, you know what I mean, to let you know that there was going to be some graphical violence. But I'm also okay with them not putting that up there. You know what I mean? I think that's because when the trailer first came on, I was like, yo, what is this? Like,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
is this Days Gone? Like, is this a new IP? Like, what the hell? What is going on? Like, I had no idea what it was. And not until the tickers like ran, you know what I mean, closer to the female in the trailer, I was like, oh, it's The Last of Us. You know what I mean? Like, so I think the setup was good, but you know, they could have put a warning up there too. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I'm good with it either way.
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting trailer. I mean, I agree with you, B. Like, you know, with the spoilers aside, I mean, I know with the struggle that humanity is having at this point in this game, you know, I guess in some sense, maybe that trailer makes sense because it is a dark period of time.
Right.
You know, I mean, they kind of set the tone in the first one with, you know, that one scene. I don't want to say it because I don't know if everyone. I know I'm assuming everyone on the panel's played The Last of Us here. I don't know if all the viewers have, but you know, that one scene in the beginning that kind of like, oh my God, you know,
Yeah.
kind of punches you in the gut.
And the first game had like many moments like that.
Yeah.
You know, like, whew, you know, that got intense. I think, you know, to like what B was saying, you know, that was setting a tone. We don't know yet what this tone is set. So I understand what you guys are saying too. Like the context is there. It just, like I said, for me, it was just funny considering some of the beats we've seen and other things, you know, that so many people were taken aback by it. I can understand being taken aback by it because of the lack of context. It was just thrown at you, you know, but I actually think there are things we've seen that have been worse than other games.
Yeah,
Sure.
I would agree with that as well.
You know, because I mean, I'm playing Wolfenstein 2 now. There's moments in that game I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah, when the game first started, I'm like, oh,
Oh yeah,
Oh.
Wolfie 2 doesn't mess around.
Yeah. But the context part is, I understand what you guys are saying by that. That is, you know, without that, you kind of go, Like you said, the whole thing with Negan, like you said, it wasn't in the promos. It wasn't thrown right at you. There was, you know, you got the context of it going into it. I get that. So if it was just a contextual thing, yeah, definitely. But like I said, I was just kind of shocked by people's reaction to it. Like, oh my God, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So to give him credit, right? You look at so to give him credit, the trailer looked absolutely gorgeous, and I think for me personally, the fact that the characters looked just so real and the situation looked so real that it really heightened the impact of what was going on screen and actually aided to my kind of unsettling reaction to it. And so from that perspective, I mean, a phenomenal success they've been able to replicate in video game form, something that I think all of us looking at that's a living, breathing person. And so like from that perspective, it's one of the most amazing trailers I've ever seen. And maybe that's like one of the reactions from having such an amazing looking trailer is like, holy crap, this looks pretty real. Maybe like my brain processes that differently than Wolfenstein, which looks
Right.
like big over the top crazy heads blowing up, right? Like I look at that and go, oh, that's just awesome. But this was like, oh my God, like this is a person. So I don't know.
So Matt, was your brain like, why are you sitting here? Why aren't you doing something? Help this woman. But no, yeah, you're right. It was like, just looking at it, I was like, wow, whatever it said, this game looks incredible.
Matt,
You know,
that's
from a graphic standpoint.
a great point. I mean,
Yeah.
that the visual impact of the game, and I think it blurs the line of reality now. Like it's so good, and the technology is moving to the point where, you know, we're blurring that line in our minds. Like you said, like you use Wolfie. Wolfie's kind of like over the top, it's not real.
Wolfie's real over the top.
Yeah, but this, this really kind of just how good it looked. I think kind of blurs that line for people. I mean, I think, I always say, when do video games become too real? And maybe we're getting to that point now. With how visually realistic these characters looked. I mean, it was pretty intense in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think, Matt, we have a question for you in the chat, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up here. Let's see here. Let's see. No, I gotta find it again.
I got it. Is it about the microtransactions?
Oh yes, thank you.
Yeah. So Patron asks. Saw an article that Sony's planning to explore microtransactions. What do you guys think? Good or bad? Not sure if you guys touched on the topic yet.
Hey guys, before you jump in, I actually have to take off. I'm sorry about that, but I got to roll.
No worries, E.
So great talking to you guys, and Mike, great talking to you. Double Matt, it was nice to officially finally meet you. Saki Matt, great talking to you as always.
Always.
Saki Matt.
I'm a Saki Matt. That's fine.
Yeah. And Ian Enrique, always a pleasure.
Yeah, man.
Always, man. Always.
All
I'm
right.
gonna have to walk out as well.
I'll catch you guys later.
So if I actually, Enrique, is it cool if I do a shout out about something?
Yeah, man. Go ahead.
This Saturday, I will be driving back to New Orleans to do I'll be driving back to do the Extra Life Children's Hospital 24-hour video game charity event.
Nice.
We will be raising money, and all proceeds go to Children's Hospital. We're going to be playing a variety of games, a lot of them, most of them party games that can have fan participation. And I have been partnering up with various developers, Bandai Namco, Adult Swim Games, PQ, Sony, Microsoft sent some codes, and people that donate will be able to win free games on Steam, PlayStation, and Xbox. To sweeten the pot a little bit, but we'll be streaming for 24 hours straight. I'm going to be throwing the links up, and if you like to give to a good cause, there's worse to do than for kids battling cancer. So feel free to support. But on that note, I'm going to head out, and you guys have a wonderful evening.
You too, Matt, man. Always a pleasure, man. Thank you.
Later, dude.
Mike, always a pleasure. It's been a while.
See you, bud. See you later.
All right. So the question was about Sony doing microtransactions.
Yeah, so a nice non-controversial topic right now, right?
No.
Yeah. So, I mean, Microsoft got a lot of criticism for this a couple years ago when they went to the monthly active user metric. Everyone thought that they were going that way to hide their sales numbers. In reality, this is the world we're in. We're in the world of engagement being the primary currency of how planning is done at these businesses. I didn't look at a unit forecast the last couple of years. I was doing the forecasting bit. I looked at our units and our revenue and users, right? So this is just a natural evolution of where the market's gone. Games that hold people, keep bringing people back, perform better both in initial sales and post-launch extra revenue. And I mean, that's just how companies are thinking about this now is how do we time is more valuable than money in a lot of ways. So completely understandable and real. And this is just the world we're in. So not surprising at all. Good to see they're going public with that and getting everyone on the same page. So, and learning how to balance microtransactions with $60 upfront and all that stuff. I mean, that's just stuff that the industry is going to have to learn over time, and the best way to give people what they want in ways that everyone's happy. So we'll see how that goes.
It's a very, I guess it's a somewhat controversial topic. Loot crates and microtransactions.
Matt, what was your thought on EA kind of backtracking a little bit on some of the loot box stuff they're doing with Star Wars Battlefront 2?
Oh, good question.
Yeah, so it just shows the give and take, right? Like, so I think outside of the Ultimate Team stuff, which has had now, 8 years or so,
Right.
to learn the best way to do that stuff, the loot boxes and loot crates in mainline games haven't really been around very long. So as with anything, it's a learning process. You try things, some things don't work, some things do. You iterate, you evaluate, you change. And I think we're just in the growing pains of how best to do this in games that historically didn't have these kind of mechanics. And I mean, there people actually really like this stuff in terms of like at least what they spend. They really like these things, but there has to be a balance. And so I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that companies are listening to user feedback, watching player metrics, and trying to best solve that riddle to really, deliver an experience that people like and want to engage with and want to stick with. So yeah, it's controversial, but I'm optimistic that companies are reacting so quickly to feedback.
Yeah, interesting. Hey, Matt, real quick, I want one quick question before you wrap up. GameStop announced their rental program, and I think you and I talked about this in DM. If you wouldn't mind sharing with the listeners, what's kind of forced GameStop or why are they kind of heading in this direction now?
So a few reasons. I think this particular program in particular is designed to get people in the stores and drive foot traffic because you have to do this all in store. So basically the program is unlimited rentals of used games from GameStop. You basically take a game out for a few days, bring it back, take another game out, that kind of thing. So it really, I think, is designed to generate more foot traffic in the stores. Now that GameStop have a lot of loot in their stores, like merch, board games, other tech products like phones and that kind of thing, Funko Pops. Like the idea is really getting people in the store again and again, and maybe they pick up a few other things along the way. So how successful will it be? I don't know. Be really interesting to watch. How that impacts some of the other things they're doing. Maybe it has some other stuff to do with subscription services and trying to combat those. But yeah, like with other companies, GameStop's trying to figure out how best to operate in this world where so much of the revenue is being driven on the digital side.
I've always said I think their days are numbered, unless they can figure out how to I don't know. I just think their days are numbered unless they can figure out a way to do what they do online.
Yeah, especially with when you look at what EA brought to the table with EA Access, and then Microsoft has the Game Pass, and you would assume that Nintendo and Sony are going to follow suit sometime in the future. You would think that GameStop has to come up, with some sort of plan to at least try to stick it out. The next 10 years, 15 years, because pretty soon they're just going to become irrelevant, and people really aren't going to use brick and mortar stores, especially when you consider, things like EA Access and the Game Pass.
Yeah, we still have a majority of sales being done of game sales. A majority are still done physically. There's the specter of the loss of net neutrality, data caps, that kind of thing. So that'll have some impact. And you have a subset of the consumer base that relies on physical media in order to fund their next purchases, like the kid making minimum wage, just trying to buy games. He's using physical games to fund what he buys next. So there's always going to be a market, but is it going to be big enough to sustain? And can they diversify enough in order to keep growth going? I think that's the big question that they're trying to solve for.
Somebody in the live chat says in 5 to 6 years, GameStop will just be a gift card store.
You know what? They do a hell of a lot of business on postal cards for digital. A good chunk of the digital sales that we have actually go through GameStop's postal cards and Best Buy and other retailers. It's a big part of the digital ecosystem. So underreported and underappreciated for sure. Oh, subscriptions. We were just talking about that a little bit. Had an interesting conversation today on Twitter about that. Subscriptions are one of the areas I think next year we'll be talking about as having exponential growth. And so this time next year, we're talking about how people are subscribing to more services and putting more of their money and investment into those services instead of buying games straight. So look for that a year from now.
Oh, wow. So we'll see like a big increase in things like Game Pass, EA Access.
Yeah. I think EA Access goes to Sony. I think you might see another company or two get into the subscription business, or at least team up with Microsoft or Sony in doing that. So I'm very bullish on the future of subscription services, especially those that allow you to download the games, not stream them. So we'll see how it goes.
Inferno, you hear that, man? It's a business opportunity, man. 4 guys are subscriptions.
I'm salivating. I'm salivating at the thought. I also like what you put in at the end there, essentially saying PS Now is a disaster, because I've been saying that for years, and people are like, "Oh, there's not a lot of lag anymore. That system's a disaster." I'm sorry.
Speed of light's a thing, man. Speed of light is a physics problem that cannot be solved by video game companies, and it'll always be an issue. So,
when is Sony abandon PS Now? Is that going to ever happen? Because I agree with you, Inferno. I was never a big fan of it.
Terrible. It's terrible.
I just don't think it's a good situation. Good service.
I don't think they're going to abandon it anytime soon, because if anything, they've been expanding it, right? Adding it to the PC and then adding PS4 games now. They think the problem lies within the fact that the library is all old games. That's not the problem. The problem is that for a huge contingency of players, they don't have the bandwidth to play it the same way they'd play it as if they popped the disc right in the system. So, maybe when... if Matt's right, with Game Pass taking off and stuff like that, where you can download games and directly to your console, maybe once they see that, they'll change up PS Now a bit. But not even mentioning the price, if you're just talking about the product, the streaming is just not good enough.
I think it's too expensive.
Yeah. I mean that's true too. But even if it were that expensive and you were getting a download service instead of straight up streaming, and you got newer PS4 titles, maybe that would start to justify the price. But man, I mean, the 2 times that I've used the trial on it, it has been a buggy mess, and I don't think I have slow internet at all. So certainly faster than like half the country, I'd say.
Wow.
Yeah, and for Sony, that's definitely a way for them to kind of combat the whole BC issue. If they allow downloads, because they could potentially put everything up on that server, and then it'll allow you to download pretty much anything from their catalog. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in the near future with that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I think I like that approach to backwards compatibility, what Microsoft's doing. I think that's the one area where Microsoft's really excelling. Game Pass, backwards compatibility. I think that's an area for improvement for Sony for sure. So Matt, what do you think? You think they'll hold on to PS Now?
Yep. They invested a whole bunch of money in that, so the fight's not over. We'll see how it goes.
That was the Gaikai investment?
Gaikai, yeah, exactly.
Yep, sure was.
Wow. What is that, $500 million or something? Is that how much?
That was a big number.
Yeah. I know it was up there. Well, yeah. All right, gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the podcast. We went a little bit over than we typically do, but great conversation as always. Matt, we really enjoyed having you on. I'm starting to lose my voice here a little bit. Really enjoyed having you on, and appreciate your insight in the industry. And man, you have a cool job, man. This stuff is really fascinating.
Right on. I appreciate all the insights I take from you guys. So thank you very much for letting me listen in.
No, absolutely. And hey, man, anytime you want to come back on, Matt, you're always welcome to. We definitely would love to have you back on. Maybe after the holidays, man. Get an idea. We could talk about the holidays and what the industry did, and talk about the Xbox One X again.
Let's do it. Yeah. I'm looking forward to all the things I predicted wrong. So yeah, let's do that.
Awesome. And you mentioned Daniel earlier about his predictions for Nintendo. You said he was off too?
Well, I mean, he was more bullish than I was, but even his very bullish Switch number looks like it's going to be exceeded. But he was the most bullish of anyone I saw. So he had the highest prediction pre-launch. So props to him.
Wow.
So good for him.
Yeah, we've actually had him on the show before. For those of you guys who don't know Daniel, he goes by, it's not Z Huge, but we call him Z Huge.
Everyone calls him Z Huge. Come on now.
Yeah, but it's he said he said how you actually pronounce it on the podcast once, but
is it Shuggy? I like Shuggy.
Yeah, it actually sounds like something like that. It's like,
oh, okay,
but it's a character from I forget what video game. It's a Cody game.
He'll always be Z Huge in my mind.
Yeah, that's right.
I think Dynasty Warriors. I think it's a character from Dynasty Warriors.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, he always be Z Huge. But yeah, we've had him on the show before, and I always enjoy his charts and stuff that he puts out there on Twitter.
Yeah.
So, excuse me, guys. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice here. Inferno, thank you again, man, for coming on and filling in for John, who couldn't make it tonight, man. We definitely appreciate it and always enjoy having you on, man.
Hey, glad to be on. Good show. Good show. I feel like that 2 hours just kind of flew by. So good conversation.
No, it did, yo. And why don't you go ahead and plug your podcast, man?
Yeah, tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time still. I can't believe it hasn't switched back to standard time. But anyway, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, we'll be doing Four Guys with Quarters. Just search for us. You'll find us on Mixer and YouTube for that podcast. We simulcast. So, yeah, if you're interested to hear some of the same topics we talked about tonight and a few others, we'll be doing that thing tomorrow night. And
you guys drop codes in the live chat.
I guess, yeah. I got to get that Control V ready. I don't know what the codes, but I don't think it'll compete with Assassin's Creed Origins, to be honest. But awesome giveaway tonight.
Yeah, well, that was kind of in with the Xbox One X launching, and I know that's a big game that people have talked about for that console. Yeah, that's why we picked that game to give away. So, but yeah, Inferno, always a pleasure, man. Love having you guys on. We had Clowns on a couple weeks ago too. So, big fan of the podcast and what you guys do, man. So
awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. B Money, man. Always a pleasure. And why don't you go ahead and plug Tick?
Yeah, man. Definitely come check us out Saturday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. YouTube /Tick__ podcast. I've actually haven't been there the last couple weeks. Just been busy and running around with kids and stuff like that. But I will be on the show this Saturday, so definitely come check us out and talk about all the latest and greatest in the Xbox news. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, man, no doubt. And just a reminder, everyone. Big shout out to everyone in the live chat again, and congratulations to Patron Raleigh who was our winner, who got the Assassin's Creed Origins code for the Xbox One. So congratulations again, man. And did see some new people in the live chat, so welcome to Brap. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and we are on every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I do something called a Brap Rant. So I just do those on the fly when I feel like doing it when I have time. So definitely check those out if you haven't done so already. So on that note, we are out. We'll be back again next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Remember, everyone, to just enjoy video games.
That's right.
That's what it's all about. Enjoyment and fun.
Absolutely.
So, yep.
And money.
On that note, we are out. Big thank you to our special guest. Big shout out to Matt from Nolan Nerdcast as well, too, for stopping by. So catch you guys next Wednesday, 9 p.m. Peace.
See you.